Hey, welcome to That One Time, the place for unforgettable moments and stories worth sharing. Funny, touching, surprising, just like life itself. Grab a seat, get comfortable, and let's dive in. The past day is left behind when you cross the threshold of the apartment. The door closes. Next, a bunch of keys rattles, carelessly thrown onto the bedside table in the hallway. A coat or jacket takes its usual place on the hanger, which has been here since Gino's grandmother's time. Then the family of a young factory worker, the blacksmith Stephen Peterson Miller, consisting of himself, his young wife Liddy, Stephen's grandmother, and a newborn daughter Mary, moved into this brand new, smelling of paint, concrete, and dust, affordable housing. Stephen's grandfather Sergei and his grandmother Lydia have long been gone. Their daughter Mary has already managed to have 3 children and grow old in this same apartment, although it's almost in the center of a small town, and the 3 living rooms were still impressive. The stairwell smelled of paint. It was dusty, especially in autumn and spring. In summer it was stuffy and hot, in winter cold. Out of the 3 rooms, Gino was constantly only in one, where he had lived since he was a child. He preferred not to touch the other 2, his grandmother's bedroom and the living room. He didn't change the furniture and didn't do renovations. He generally tried to keep the door to the second half of the apartment closed, not to go in there, not to listen to its strange sounds. Everything here reminded him of a carefree childhood and youth. His grandmother's room was the farthest. Gino rarely went in there even before. Towards the end of her life, Grandma completely lost her mind. It seemed she was afraid of war or blockade, which she herself hadn't lived through. But by her bedside, there was always a TV box, stuffed to the brim with reserves of cereals, pasta, and sugar. On top, Grandma Lydia always put feather pillows. She meticulously changed the pillowcases every week. Only after Grandma's death did it turn out that it wasn't just out of simple neatness that she took such care of the pillows. When they were sorting through things and furniture, it turned out that Grandma Lydia kept certain sums of money in every sweater, every mattress, and every duvet cover. It's a pity this wasn't discovered immediately. The first 500 rubles were found by the eldest, Nellie, when she shook out and ripped open the old mattress. With this money, they gave Grandma a decent burial and had some left for the wake. That's what it means. She provided for herself. The large living room, the room in the center of the apartment, used to be a bedroom, a living room, and a dining room. Noisy companies gathered here. Grandpa's friends, Grandma's friends, uncles and aunts. And then the sisters' fiancés and husbands started appearing. Not for long, but even children came. The liveliest feasts were held here. Wakes for unknown relatives and friends. New Year and all birthdays were celebrated. Guests slept here. Although the only sleeping places in the living room were sofas and a pull-out armchair, there was enough space for everyone. They slept on the floor, on inflatable mattresses, fitting onto blankets and throws. Gino loved holidays and came, but Grandma Lydia never missed an opportunity to boast about her grandson's achievements to interesting guests whom he liked and who liked him. Jean got second place in the school French Olympiad. Gino was given a certificate today for excellent academic achievements. Gino graduated from school with a gold medal. Our Jean got into law school just as we wanted, and on a scholarship without any tutors. At first, only Grandma praised Gino out loud. Later, with age, his mother joined in. And when he met Marina, oh, that Marina. Everything with Marina started here, in this apartment, and it ended here too. He didn't want to remember his beloved grandmother. He didn't like immersing himself in the world of holidays, her childhood with many guests. It was hateful and disgusting. His grandmother, with 3 grades of education, was proud of his every A. She didn't understand that these grades weren't for knowledge, but just for his unusual intellect. Gino was simply a little smarter than an amoeba. He did his homework, he studied a lot. But when his grandmother and mother praised him, like now, he sometimes thought that his problems at work and in life were connected to this. Nobody praises him anymore for completed tasks, for a hastily done cleaning in the house. Nobody is proud of his simple achievements, and that means it's no longer necessary to accomplish them. Marina also praised him, was proud of him at every opportunity. They met in school. Then 2 classes were merged, and Marina became a student in 7th B. She seemed much older, wore a strict school uniform, although it wasn't mandatory. Her hair was always pulled back in a braid or ponytail. Only on rare school holidays did she allow herself a hairstyle with her hair down, pinned back on both sides with a rubber band or clip. Her strands were always neat. She was known as a bookworm in class and she wasn't liked. But Gino liked her immediately. He especially loved her courage and confidence. Marina could argue with the literature teacher for half the lesson. The class would relax during this time. They could do their own things. And Gino listened to everything. How Olivia Kusainovna lowered grades on yet another dictation. Thoughts and memories involuntarily visited Gino on particularly sad evenings, when he wasn't very busy with work or on the contrary, was overloaded. Today was just such an evening. Gino brought a stack of documents from work. He needed to read through them, sort everything out, and then write the same volume of responses, opinions, and questions. Happy weekends were out of the question. So now, having hastily thrown off his jacket and shoes, Gino dived into the kitchen and pulled out the sandwiches that were left from the morning from the refrigerator. He quickly brewed tea and moved to his room, the only one that still showed signs of human presence. He didn't want to wake up. His whole body ached. Yesterday he hadn't closed the window, wanting to air out the room, and fell asleep like that. A damp wind, joined by a fine rain at night, flew around the room all night. The windowsill was splattered with drops. Some got onto the table. Gino wrapped himself in a blanket, then burrowed into a throw as well. He didn't want to sleep, and he had no desire to get up. As soon as you put your feet off the bed, the world would completely engulf you inevitably. Today he would have to throw the throw onto the sofa, wipe the table and windowsill, make coffee, which he would have to drink even without bread. After all the supplies were destroyed yesterday. That's how every day begins. He would have to somehow spend the time between morning and night, work with documents, go to the store, stare at his phone. Excellent plan, Gino thought, but first the store and then the documents. He often spoke his plans out loud. He dressed in loungewear today, only taking the jeans and hoodie that had been hanging on the drying rack since Monday. He smoothed his overgrown haircut with a comb. Instead of heavy boots, he took sneakers. He threw a backpack over his shoulder and headed towards the store. He wanted to take a walk in the morning. Raindrops kept falling from the sky. But this didn't spoil his overall mood at all. There were few people on the streets, and those who were there hurried to hide from the drizzle. It was cool, chilly. But if you put up your hood, you forget about it. It becomes cozy. You immediately feel protected, confident, as if you've conquered the elements. Approximately such thoughts overwhelmed Gino. He liked them. And to stay with them longer, he decided to walk to the shopping pavilion. He had spent most of his life in this city. He left for the capital for 3 years to improve his qualifications, but he couldn't continue working in a big million-plus city. The huge distances scared him. The large buildings didn't let him breathe. The constant flow of people irritated him. It became unbearable. Having tried his luck, Gino returned to his hometown, his familiar apartment. He was gladly accepted back at his old job. From this house, he had walked to school for 10 years, gone down the sidewalk, and crossed the road. Every day he walked past a huge long building on Pushkin Street. Then he learned that it was a commune house. Gino had seen it in his history textbook. Along the house, almost every day in the morning, there were old women selling things: socks, napkins, mushrooms, and berries from the nearby forest. There were also bundles of firewood, small souvenirs. With each year, there were fewer and fewer old women, then they started being chased away. All this happened before Gino's eyes. A 2-story barracks. Marina used to live here with her mother. At 8:10 in the morning, Gino was already standing under her windows and waiting. Together they went to school and then walked back the same way. When they started studying at the institute, both getting into law, they walked in a different direction, to Kommunisticheskaya Square. From there, they took the 17th bus to the final stop, the Institute of Law. Now Gino was also walking to the commune, as all the locals called it. In his 36 years, the road hadn't changed at all. although a few tobacco shops had opened and the entrance to the park had been improved. The building remained in place. Further on, a new cafe in a foreign style, a lounge area, a co-working space, and in the same building, the Matriona store from Gino's childhood was still there. The sign was the same, and it seemed the saleswoman was the same too, only older now. Again, an abandoned one-story building, the former building of the Forestry Academy. The doors here have long been broken down, there are no windows, and it's even harder to notice that a human foot has definitely stepped here. In the evenings, groups of young people gather here, who are now being chased away from the renovated entrances. In winter, the homeless often find shelter here. Many in the city know that the academy used to have its own bunker, and aspiring diggers or adventurers often look around the territory to get into the old shelters through the basement. Gino had been here too. In 10th grade, he asked Marina out on a date. Of course, not to the abandoned building, but to a cafe. He earned his first serious money then and decided to spend every penny on his beloved. That she was his beloved was not in doubt, but he couldn't express it eloquently, passionately. Marina always joked it off, saying they were too young to talk about love. And here was such an opportunity. Romance, a cafe. She got ready for about 3 hours, no less. Gino didn't know this. He came to pick her up at the appointed time. And before that, she had driven her mother crazy. What dress to wear? Or is it better to go in jeans and this top? Marina chattered, trying on first a short blue dress, then new school trousers. You don't go on a date in trousers, her mother grumbled, and you'll freeze in your top, you'll get kidney problems. It's not May outside. With great difficulty, Marina found dark tights, put on a denim skirt and a fitted wool sweater. Mom knitted it. The hairstyle question was solved quickly, but things were worse with makeup. Marina had both lipsticks and mascara. Mom allowed her to wear makeup, but didn't know how to teach her herself. Marina redid her eyeliner 10 times, then everyone decided it was better without it. Then she put on mascara. Her eyelashes became unnaturally long and left marks on her eyelids when she blinked. Marina washed off the mascara. Her lipstick was pale pink, matching her skin tone. She decided to stick to lipstick and foundation. The foundation was too orange, giving her an unhealthy look. None of it was right. Finally, the lipstick. She had to give that up too, because Marina was literally eating it off her lips due to nervousness. To hell with this makeup. If you don't know how, don't bother, she whispered to herself and leaned over the sink. She applied regular cream to her face so the wind wouldn't chap it. You look simply charming today, Gino whispered to her, putting an arm around her shoulders. Oh, you haven't seen me with makeup yet. Marina, as always, joked it off. Gino wanted to kill her for that. Why ruin it? He was trying to make everything beautiful, like in the movies, like all girls like it. But that was Marina all over. They ordered dessert immediately, stretched it out for a long time, and drank tea. Marina talked about her failed attempts to get dressed up, how she drew and washed off eyeliner, how she licked her lips and heavily applied lipstick. Gino listened and couldn't get enough. He wanted to say everything that had been hanging over Gino like a heavy burden of unspoken words for so long. And so they went out, cheerful, happy, heading towards her house. The sky was already overcast, and rain was falling in large drops, gradually turning into either hail or snow, expected for November in these latitudes. They almost ran across the square. The academy building had been abandoned quite recently, and only the most resourceful had already taken a liking to it, and boys had broken the windows with slingshots. Overall, an ideal shelter in bad weather. Let's stand under the roof, Gino suggested, at least until the hail stops. Marina agreed. They stood in the doorway, watching the large hailstones mixed with drops shatter on the asphalt. A heavy hailstone shattered at Gino's feet. He squeezed Marina's hand tighter and moved close to her. This scene could easily inspire a poet or artist. Semi-ruined brick walls, an empty doorway against the backdrop of the rustling rain. A couple, a boy and a girl, looking at each other. She looks up at him, he leans towards her face. Just like that, without many words soaked through, they were always together. I love you and I'm not going to let you go. And if you laugh again, he took another breath. Please, laugh. You can joke it off. I want you to hear this and always know it. I need you. He fell silent, either waiting for an answer or thinking about his words. And I need you, Marina said with a smile. But her eyes seemed to shine differently, not with a childlike smirk, but with some kind of too serious devotion, as if these were the only words she had been waiting for, and they didn't need loud speeches, beautiful dates, bright makeup, or ringing laughter. They just needed to be in the right place at the right time. Snow began to fall, mixing with the dirt on the asphalt, but it didn't completely melt. By Marina's house, the kids were already feeling the night frost. The wind changed sharply. Underfoot was an unclear mess, dirt from the roadsides, growing snowdrifts, still unfrozen puddles. Want to come in and warm up? I wouldn't mind some tea, Gino chuckled. And everything will be. There will be tea, and pastries too. And there will be a timid but such a long kiss, a cold bed with rough white linen. In the morning it will become the coziest in the world. In the morning you won't want to get up and remember that you are a school graduate in a minute, not a hero of a romance novel. All this would be, or rather, was. Now it was in the past. Gino loves remembering that day and that year. A happy, carefree time. He dreamed that when he and Marina finished school, they could live like a real family. They would definitely move in with him. He would study, and in the evenings, he would work part-time with his uncle. He was an electrician and was already doing small jobs, taking them on. And then they would definitely get married. And how happy he, Gino, would be when Marina said she was pregnant. Quiet family happiness. Naive fool, he often tells himself now. What happiness for you? What have you done to be worthy of it? But now he walks and involuntarily remembers that day, that kiss, those plans for a lifetime that will never come true. In place of the cafe is now that very shopping pavilion, proudly called Palmyra. Opposite it is a children's hospital and some fast food joint inside a store with cheap clothes and cosmetics. And on the ground floor is a large supermarket. Gino walked here automatically. He threw standard groceries into the basket, sausage, bread, kefir. After thinking, he took a bottle of cognac from the shelf. He didn't know yet if he would drink it, but his hand just reached for it. And he returned for cheese, a few apples, a pack of cookies, a lemon. He loaded everything into his backpack. The way back no longer seemed so appealing. He had gotten wet on the way here, and the air conditioning in the store had frozen him. Now the hoodie wasn't cozy, but unpleasant. He wanted to get home quickly. Gino left the store, walking quickly towards home. He found himself on the academy side again. He stepped into a puddle with his sneakers and stopped for a second to shake them off. A knock. Strange, like hitting a radiator from the inside with a hammer. The blow repeated several times, sometimes stronger, sometimes weaker. He went inside the shabby building. Here the sound was clearly audible. They were hitting the radiators. But how could you guess where? For a minute, doubts overcame Gino. Did he need to go in there? To calm himself, he decided to check anyway. If it was a couple of questionable characters, he would just go on his way. But what if someone was stuck? No one was on the first floor. Gino quickly reached the door to the basement. He turned on the flashlight on his phone. For some reason, he shouted, "Hello," and immediately stopped himself. What kind of hello? You're not lost in the forest. What should you shout in dark, abandoned basements? Probably, "Is anyone here?" What a stupid thought. If they're knocking, someone is there. "Where are you?" Gino shouted at the top of his lungs. "Need help?" "Yes." A thin, barely audible response suddenly came. "I'm here." And where is here? Gino thought to himself. "Can you give me a location?" Out loud he said, "Keep talking to me so I know where to go." "I don't know where to go." The same thin voice, barely audible. "My leg hurts. There's a door here, painted with colored paints. There's a devil drawn on it." Gino looked around. Well, there's a landmark. There were no doors on the rooms along the walls, so he had to go further down the corridor. Here was the first door. No devil on it, just swear words. Further on, another one, it was locked from the outside. Arrows, dates, and signatures on the walls. Adventurers had left a reminder of themselves. Further on, a fork. Gino shouted into the darkness again. Should I turn right or left? I don't know. The voice was getting weaker. Towards where you can see light. To the left, then. He looked for a crack leading outside. A little light entered the corridor. There it was, the door with the devil. Horned, red, with black eyes. Such a thing would not be a sin to exhibit in the Hermitage. It turned out very canonical. The door was slightly ajar, so Gino had to lean on it. The room behind the door was empty. There were some pipes along the walls. He peered closer. A figure was lying by the far wall, quite small. Okay, I'm here. What happened? Gino said as cheerfully as possible. I'm here, and my leg hurts. I fell off a pipe. There's a kitten sitting on the floor. He was just a child, a boy about 6 or 7 years old. Next to him was a backpack, a white shirt, a vest, and trousers. A schoolboy, Gino thought. The child's foot was unnaturally twisted. No need to be a fortune teller, a fracture. There was nothing to think about. How did you end up here? What's your name? Stevie, the boy said. I went after the kitten. He climbed in here, and I wanted to save him. They say homeless people live here, and I climbed after him, and he went onto the pipe. I wanted to get him down. He jumped. I fell, and my leg got stuck. Now it hurts. The boy spoke quickly, disjointedly. His voice trembled, his face was tear-stained and very hurt. Hi, Stevie. I'm Uncle Gino. I'll help you now. Let me carry you out of here now. Your leg seems to be broken. You'll have to go to the hospital. The boy got scared. Oh, Mom will be upset. Imagine that, Gino thought. He's thinking about his mom, about the kitten, but didn't react to a broken leg. We'll call a doctor now, and he'll tell us if you need to go to the hospital or not. And I think Mom will just be happy that you're okay. Come here. Gino reached out his hands to pick up the boy. Gino carefully examined the broken leg. As gently, even as caringly as possible. He instantly realized that the situation required immediate intervention. The child was clearly in pain, but he was holding back tears. But Gino's nerves were starting to fray. He barely remembered his first aid lessons. He knew that an injured limb shouldn't be disturbed. Just in case, he decided not to interfere at all, so as not to make things worse. He understood that he needed to get the boy out of there as quickly as possible. Uncle Gino, please take the kitten. When I get out of the hospital, I'll definitely talk Mom into keeping him. The boy almost started crying again, so Gino hurried to calm him down. We'll find your kitten. Where did you see him? He's here. He didn't run away, I think. I specifically closed the door so he wouldn't hide. Gino looked around more carefully. On one of the pipes, the unfortunate kitten was indeed still sitting. Ginger, with floppy ears. He had tucked his paws under him, covered his tail. His eyes were full of pleasure. Gino stood on one of the pipes and with a light movement caught the kitten. It didn't resist, calmly went into his arms. Put him in my backpack so he doesn't run away, the boy reasoned. Gino hugged the child, holding him carefully, despite his weight. With each step upward, he felt a growing sense of responsibility, searching for something in this forgotten place. Just like that, with 2 backpacks on his shoulder, a cat, and a boy, Gino emerged into the daylight. From here, he decided not to call an ambulance, but to take the boy straight to the hospital. It was faster to walk. After handing Stevie over to the doctors in the emergency room, Gino left his phone number at the reception and was about to go home. The boy's mother had already been called, and she immediately rushed to her son. Stevie obediently waited for her arrival on a couch right in the hallway. Nurses kept appearing beside him. Uncle Gino, the boy shouted. Gino walked over and nodded. Uncle Gino, just tell me where to pick up the kitten. As soon as I get better, I'll come for him. My phone number is at the reception. Tell Mom to call me. And will you come visit me? If you want, I'll come. You must come, Stevie said enthusiastically. I'll name him Churchill. Better Chubais, Gino chuckled, but the child probably didn't understand his strange humor. In addition to work, this 4-legged happiness had fallen on him. Gino loved animals. Before, when his mother and grandmother were still alive, there was a constant parade of cats, puppies, hamsters, and even pigeons in their house. They felt sorry for everyone, fed them. Gino consciously didn't get pets. He didn't have time to take care of them. And now he had one, Churchill. The kitten slept, ate, ran around. In the evening, Gino sat at the table, buried in his laptop. The kitten settled on his lap and purred. It suddenly felt so warm, so pleasant. Having calmed down, Gino decided that he should visit Stevie after all. Stevie had already been moved to a ward. He was half sitting on the bed, looking at some book. Besides him, there were 3 other boys there. One had his parents sitting with him, another had an elderly woman, probably his grandmother. Another boy was packing his things. It looked like he was going home. Stevie's bed was directly opposite the door. Gino took a few steps towards the boy who had been distracted from his book. "Well, hello. How are you feeling?" Gino smiled. "Hi," the boy beamed. "How's Churchill?" "He's fine, running around already. How about you? Broke your leg? Mom says they'll let you go home soon, but you'll have to lie down a lot. She went out to talk to the doctor now, so they'll let us go home sooner. She'll be back soon. And when they let me go home, we'll come for the kitten." Mom already agreed. She was even happy. Stevie spoke just as quickly, trying to tell everything in one breath. "Well, how are you doing here, little one? Haven't gotten bored yet?" a voice said behind Gino, and he turned around. A woman approached the bed. She leaned her hands on the backrest, looked at her son, and then at Gino. A round, slightly tanned face, thin-rimmed glasses, dark hair, held back by a clip, fell from her shoulders. She was strictly dressed. Over her suit, she wore a hospital gown. It wasn't difficult to recognize Marina in this woman. She hadn't changed, only she looked somehow bigger. Perhaps the jacket and gown gave her that appearance, or perhaps her slight stoop had straightened out and her shoulders were back. Gino was momentarily flustered, cleared his throat, and asked, "Marina, how are you here? Came to see your son? I didn't expect to see you. So you're Uncle Gino who saved the kitten? It turns out Gino smirked. Marina's tone seemed condescending, even friendly. "Mom, do you know Uncle Gino?" Stevie watched what was happening with curiosity. "Yes, he's my classmate. We even went to the same institute." Gino looked at Stevie. "We were friends for a long time." Marina hurried to tell her son that he would be discharged the day after tomorrow and wouldn't go to school for a while. "I'll go then. I still live in the same place. When you're ready to pick up the kitten, call me. I left my number." "Yes, of course, I'll call." Gino said goodbye to Stevie and Marina again and quickly left the ward. Today had become even stranger. Yesterday, all those adventures with finding the child, saving the kitten, and today Marina. Could fate have played such a cruel joke? Gino didn't doubt the existence of Providence. He believed that everything was predetermined. But like this, he felt a mix of emotions, happy to see Marina, but at the same time sickened because he realized he hadn't seen her for many years. He couldn't help but remember those happy times when they spent so much time together, laughing, doing silly things, and supporting each other. Gino got lost in thought on the way home, thinking that the meeting would be the beginning of a new close connection between them. But at the same time, he understood that too much had changed and perhaps it was impossible to return to what was before. Remembering Marina, he smiled and felt a surge of warmth and nostalgia. They were both so young and full of hopes and dreams for the future. They got into law school simply because they both passed the entrance exams. Back then, it seemed to them that there was nothing better than constantly being together, studying and coming home at the same time, preparing for tests together, taking exams. And it was like that for the first 6 months. After the first semester, long weekends began. The weather had been freezing for several days, and it wasn't going to improve. They had to spend all their time indoors. His mother was still living in the apartment then too, although she didn't interfere with the young couple. They rarely crossed paths. They would quickly leave for school or the cinema. Now, the constant presence of people in the apartment started to irritate Marina. Living together didn't seem so fun to her. Responsibilities suddenly fell on her. Although her mother cooked for the whole family, Marina, out of politeness and a desire to learn, also cooked something interesting, trying out recipes from large cookbooks. It always turned out differently. Some dishes were successful, others could be safely thrown away without even trying them. At school, she could eat in the cafeteria or eat what she brought with her. Now Marina felt some kind of pressure from her boyfriend. He didn't directly tell her to clean, but his behavior showed that he expected it from her, and the girl tried her best to meet his expectations. And so time went on. Studies were replaced by the room by the kitchen. There was nothing fun or romantic about this life together. Nothing that Gino had promised himself and her. Sometimes she thought that this was what love was like, practical, without excessive tenderness, everything as an independent woman would want, a relationship without excessive passion and romance, without scandals and long arguments. Simply everyone had duties and obligations. The main thing was to do everything according to the rules, then there would be happiness. Other times, thoughts visited her that Gino had simply started using her. Notes for him, sometimes she wrote them. And what did he do for her? Occasionally gifts on very rare holidays. Sometimes he would forget to congratulate her. With each passing day, such thoughts increased, but they continued to live together. Marina also maintained order, cooked. There were also thoughts that this was how it would be, possibly for the rest of her life. Marina would continue to submit to duties and live without love and passion. She adhered to the rules and accepted her fate. But in her soul, she felt emptiness and dissatisfaction. She dreamed of more, of real love and a feeling of happiness. She continued to endure all these thoughts and doubts, for such was her reality. She, Marina, an excellent student, you could say a beauty. She had so many ambitions: to become a lawyer, a prosecutor, wear a blue uniform suit and handle court cases. She wanted to go to work from 8 to 6, 5 days a week, come home, sink into a large armchair with a throw, taking off her high-heeled shoes on the way, feeling her legs relax. She would throw a throw over her knees, take a book or turn on the TV. She would cook what she wanted or order food delivery. She would brew tea, drink it slowly, looking out the window, changed into soft home pajamas. A huge bed. That's how Marina dreamed of, a large bed with a carved headboard and a canopy, like a princess. She would fall asleep, and in the morning she would go back to work. Marina's weekends would be just as measured. Walks in the fresh air, then popping into a couple of shops. She would buy herself puzzles or embroidery to occupy her evenings, just a dream vacation. And in the summer, she would go to the sea. Living far in the north, she had no idea what the sea was like until she was 20, but she yearned for it. Her grandmother, who used to live by the sea, the cool Baltic Sea, told her about it. It raged, it was boundless, it attracted, it embraced. Marina dreamed of the sea. Gino suddenly invited her during the summer holidays after the first year. They had a whole free month after the semester and practical training. Marina agreed, but it turned out it wasn't cheap at all. But they went on the upper bunks of an old third-class carriage with huge backpacks. They took everything they could so they wouldn't have to buy things there, wouldn't have to spend money. They lived there for 5 days. They lived in a tent between a sanatorium and a wild beach. Every day they went swimming. Once they climbed a mountain. They had a boring vacation. But for Marina, it was magical. She didn't want to go anywhere but the sea. To lie, sunbathe, swim. They didn't quarrel there. They didn't divide anything. They simply enjoyed their vacation as much as they could. And after that trip, Marina understood clearly. She would go to the sea every year, with money. She longed to drink coffee in a seaside cafe, eat all those southern fruits, go on some excursion. They went to the sea again during the holidays. Then they could afford an inexpensive hotel and coffee on the shore. After all, Gino had fulfilled her dream. He was the first to show her the sea in all its glory. Gino returned to the apartment, puzzled. The past feelings didn't just stir. Maybe to St. Pete or Moscow, or maybe south, to the sea. Something incredible had happened today. She was here. She had a son. He went to school here. That meant she had been in the city all this time. In such a small city, he had never met her. If it hadn't been for yesterday's incident, he would never have known. He reasoned like this, sometimes out loud, sometimes in his mind. Well, she was here. What next? Would he run to declare his love, say he was wrong, that he was a complete fool? She probably had a husband too. Did he think she would forgive him now, throw herself into his arms, cry with happiness, and they would live happily ever after? So why didn't she rush to him in the ward if she missed him? And why didn't he rush to her? He could have at least said, "Hi." What would he do now? The doorbell pulled him out of his thoughts and musings. Gino flinched. He put out and then threw away his cigarette. Could it be Marina? Yes, she was standing on the doorstep with her umbrella open. So serious and businesslike. She didn't fit into the decor of this apartment. She was too young for it too. Now she wore high-heeled boots. Before, her mother didn't allow her to, so she wouldn't seem short next to her daughter. Now the black patent leather boots added another 10 centimeters to her height, lengthening her legs in narrow trousers. A narrow-fitted burgundy raincoat gleamed with raindrops. A scarf. She used to not wear hats, saying her face was too round and she looked like a mushroom. But now she had found a solution. An elegant beret. Gino stared at her for an indecently long time. He didn't immediately remember that he should invite his guest into the apartment. "Coming in?" He invited her with a gesture. "I came to say thank you." Marina stepped across the threshold of the apartment. Gino saw a painfully familiar scene. Here she was, Marina. Just like before, she first took off her raincoat, then her beret, shook off invisible dust, adjusted her trousers, set down her bag. "I'm so glad you were there. Stevie is such a restless one," she paused. "He climbed into the basement, said he wanted to save a kitten." As if hearing he was being discussed, the ginger culprit dashed out to the people. Marina felt a little relieved. Here it was, a reason to come here and have this awkward conversation. "Who's this cutie?" she said to the animal. "He's beautiful, isn't he?" This she said to Gino. "Yes, he's cute. Tea? Let's have tea since I'm here." Gino got out the mugs, filled the kettle with water. It was awkward doing all this in silence. "How's Stevie?" he asked to break the ice. "Nothing serious?" "No, thankfully everything's fine. What saved him was that you were there. You never know who else is hanging around in that dump." Marina grimaced with disgust. "Oh, come on. No one would have just walked past." Gino waved it off. "I was very surprised to see you in the ward. I thought you had left this city a long time ago." "I did leave. I lived by the sea for about 3 years, working rotational shifts. And then Mom died. I came back and started dealing with the apartment here. Stevie grew up, I sent him to kindergarten here, and now to school. Do you have green tea? Yes, I remember you like it. I have some. It's strange that I never ran into you. Everyone's visible here. And I'm not a lawyer. What would I do without a degree?" Marina chuckled. "I'm studying part-time to be a primary school teacher." Back then, in the past, the young couple moved out. They thought everything was ahead of them, that only days of boundless pleasure awaited them. They knew for sure that it wouldn't be like everyone else. The only mistake was that everyone thinks that, and they all end up the same way. "I want freedom," he said one day. "I can't stand looking at these walls anymore. Let's at least renovate. All you want is fun. What about me? Pay for everything, carry bags, and spend a bunch of free time on it. I'm already working and studying too. And what is there to renovate here? Nothing seems to be broken. I'd at least wallpaper our room to make it look fresher. Otherwise, these gray stripes with flowers give me nightmares. The flowers are fine, and you won't be able to hang wallpaper properly." Marina shut down. It seemed like a trifle, but why did such trifles happen every time? First, someone said she couldn't hang wallpaper properly, then she oversalted the soup, then she overcooked the cutlet. A fool wouldn't understand, Marina repeated to herself in such situations. Who was Gino then? He said it with such an air, as if he had caught her in something terrible, some mortal sin. Gino's mother loved Marina, often took her side if she heard the young couple arguing. But it didn't look promising. The adult woman scolded her son for a wrongly spoken word. She remained his mother no matter what. He was her own flesh and blood. When she moved to the dacha, it got even worse. Marina used to find at least imaginary protection. She could smooth over conflicts. But here, there was nowhere to go. They were alone in the large apartment, alone with each other. with their problems. They had to build their family life themselves. Everything was changing. Every day Marina heard that she couldn't do some little thing right. With each time, she became more and more upset. The person she loved pointed out all the flaws he saw in her face, sometimes even out of context, just in passing. She wanted to tell him the joyful news right after her studies. Today Marina stayed home. She didn't go to class. Her health was failing. She had a fever in the morning and nausea all day. Marina found out what caused it a couple of days ago. Due to feeling unwell, she went to the clinic and they immediately sent her for an ultrasound. And there, on the picture, was a 4-week-old fetus. A completely indistinguishable spot on the screen for Marina clearly proved that her discomfort would last for a long time. She didn't tell Gino right away. There was no suitable occasion. He was staying late at work, wanted to get as much done as possible, looking for materials to supplement his diploma. And today, he was supposed to come straight after class. His mood was clearly not receptive. He got under the covers. While the intro was playing, Marina asked, "Do you think we'll have beautiful children?" "Hardly. And I think they'll be quite nice. Do you want a boy or a girl?" "I don't want anyone." "What kind of stupid questions are these? I don't want to discuss this. We're at least 10 years away from having children if we don't break up. Let's watch the movie." And they watched the movie. The idea of telling him about the child didn't come up for Marina again, but another one did. In the morning, they woke up as usual. Marina went to the kitchen, fried croutons, brewed tea. Gino started getting ready for the institute and then for work. "Are you going to class today?" he asked. "No, I'll go to the clinic today, get a sick note. I still have a slight fever. I'll be back around 7 today. Call me if anything." And they said goodbye at the door as usual. Marina closed the door, went to the room. She changed, took a black travel bag out of the sofa drawer. At the bottom, she put 2 jackets, several pairs of trousers, sweaters, and 2 shirts. She packed a small handbag, took cosmetics from the bathroom, a few bottles of her perfume. From her jewelry box, she took her few pieces of jewelry: a ring, a silver pendant, a bracelet, and earrings. Her father had given her the ring shortly before he died. It was too small now, so it hung on a chain. Marina sometimes wore it around her neck. Gino had given her the pendant and earrings right after they started living together. The bracelet was from Gino's mother, a talisman with her zodiac sign. She twirled the jewelry in her hands. Marina put on the chain with the ring, put the rest back in the jewelry box, and returned it to its place. She sat down on the bed, took out her phone. She scrolled to the contact Gino. He was still saved as Gino. She never felt like saving him as darling or sweetheart. Even worse, the cliché bunny, kitten annoyed her. She pressed delete. The contact flew into the trash, and the trash was immediately emptied. Marina stood up, exhaled, and left the apartment with her bag. That same day, she submitted an application to withdraw from the institute. Just like that, 6 months before graduating, citing personal circumstances. They promised to send the documents by mail to her address of residence, but whose address was unclear. Marina had gone home before the institute, left the bag with her mother. Her mother wasn't home. That was good. Mom wouldn't have understood everything that was happening. In time, of course, things would have worked out for them, and Mom would definitely have helped with the child. But Marina was ashamed that she had chosen the wrong man, that she had gotten pregnant so irresponsibly that she couldn't tell him about it. She drew conclusions. She bought a ticket to St. Pete at the station, then went south from there. Now everything was behind her, except for her own feelings. Marina came back 2 days later. Gino had already come home from work and fed the cat. And then suddenly the intercom rang. She was alone, worried. "I came for the cat." The kitten was put in a carrier. She was about to leave. "I wanted to thank you again for Stevie. You saved the most precious thing I have. Is there anything I can do for you?" "I already said it's okay, but if you want, can I ask you a favor?" "Anything. Let's meet again on the weekend, somewhere in a cafe or take a walk." Gino spoke with pauses, but confidently. Marina pursed her lips, quickly turned away. "Okay, we'll meet. I'll call you. I need to see when I have time." Gino locked the door behind her. It didn't feel easier as he had expected. On the contrary, somewhere in his soul, it grew heavier. A lump of air seemed to rise to his throat, making it hard to breathe. For several days, Gino was not himself. He thought about what he would say to Marina. At first, he knew exactly. He would ask why she left, why she didn't answer the phone, where she had lived. But the closer the meeting got, the more he realized, what would that information give him? And then what? He would learn the reasons. But could he fix anything? And did he want to fix it? His thoughts became more and more confused. The clear plan for the meeting was lost against the backdrop of reflection and uncertainty. Finally, he decided, let whatever happens, happen. He just wanted to see Marina again. You know, I didn't believe you would come until the last minute. He smiled when Marina got out of the taxi. I promised. And I didn't have any specific plans. I wanted to invite you for a walk in the park, and then maybe go for dinner. There's a wonderful new cafe on the square. That's a good idea. The weather is perfect for walks today. The last autumn days without a gray sky and rain. It might even start soon. Gino offered his arm, inviting Marina to walk towards the park. The weather had indeed been good for a couple of days. No rain fell, and sometimes a bright but already cold sun peeked out. Leaden clouds sometimes covered it, sometimes disappeared completely. There were many people around. All the city dwellers wanted to seize the last fine days. Marina and Eugene walked arm in arm. He used to dislike walking like that, but Marina loved it. Now he himself suggested it. They discussed the weather, the large number of people, which slightly irritated both of them. They walked along the embankment of a small river. The main attraction of the park was a bridge over it. Here, newlyweds and lovers left ribbons and locks with their names, securing their love. Gino noticed a brand new shiny lock engraved Eugene and Marina. Look, he said, it seems like a good sign, finding our names. Oh, really? What a coincidence. Marina exhaled. Why did you leave? Gino finally decided to ask the question that bothered him the most. He knew he had to ask it. I got pregnant, Marina began. What? Gino interrupted. What do you mean, Stevie? No, how old is he? No, that didn't work out well, Marina quickly said. Stevie was born later. After I left, so much happened. Tell me about it. I want to know. Was I to blame? I was to blame. I took my documents and left for Anapa. I had a little money. I rented a room in a dormitory there. A guy lived next door. He helped me around the house sometimes, helped me with work. And at 26 weeks, I had a miscarriage. Due to stress. I got into debt then, only worked at a loss. Sometimes I couldn't even pay for the room. That's when I completely broke down. And this guy, Max, invited me to live with him, asked me to marry him. So I agreed. Stevie was born. We lived normally. He didn't hurt me. He told me to enroll in part-time studies. There was always money. Max hustled as much as he could. What happened now? And then we broke up. Peacefully, calmly. He said he had fallen madly in love, and I had never really adored him. He didn't abandon his son, promised to help. So peacefully. And then such news. Mom died. And I thought that was a reason to come back here. Gino was silent, and Marina said nothing. They stood, leaning on the bridge railing. Gino examined the names on the locks. He wondered how many of them were still together. He remembered how they once went on an excursion. They had to climb a mountain for almost a kilometer to visit a wishing cave. The weather was awful then. They didn't want to go anywhere. But the excursion had to take place, so in the morning they went to the bus stop. They drove on a wet road, then climbed an untrodden path. So in the cave, Gino had only one wish, to get back to the room with the heater and hot tea as soon as possible. Remember we went to the wishing cave? He asked. Of course we froze so much I'll remember it forever, Marina smiled. Did you make a wish? Yes. Did you? I wish to get home sooner. I was frozen solid as a puppy then. Well, imagine that, it came true right away. Remember, we canceled half the route because of the fog then? We didn't cross the ridge, went straight home after the wishes. Yes, I didn't connect that then. I was more happy that I wouldn't have to freeze. And what did you wish for? Did it come true? It certainly didn't come true right away. I always had only one wish. And maybe it will still come true. What is it? If I tell you, It definitely won't come true." Gino smiled. The conversation, which had been a heavy life story, suddenly shifted to a normal, friendly tone. This familiar, cheerful Marina with her funny superstitions. She joked, talked about Stevie, about the kitten, that Stevie wouldn't leave his side. They had dinner at the cafe. All the time they discussed what had happened to each of them during that time. The conversation flowed as if there hadn't been 4 years of living together. Such a difficult breakup, a long separation, as if one of them had gone on vacation and now returned, sharing impressions. "Coming in?" Gino asked when they were passing the abandoned academy. "Do you think that's a good idea?" "I know it's a good idea. I already lost you once because of my foolishness. Don't think now is the right time. And I think, on the contrary, we missed the right time a long time ago." She had taken a long train ride. She had very little money with her, everything she had managed to earn. The direction wasn't very clear. Before, she had only been to southern cities as a tourist, and St. Petersburg was something incomprehensibly mysterious to her. She had thought before about what she would do if she had to live in such a big city. The first horror to her seemed to be the distances. In the city she was coming from, you could cover the longest bus route in an hour and a half. The thought that it could take an hour to get to work by the fastest transport didn't fit in her head. The second horror was the number of people. What if she got a job and the building had 25 floors and there were hundreds of people on each floor? How could she remember everyone? The mysterious crisscrossing courtyards and noisy avenues scared her. No, Marina definitely didn't want to go to the capital. It didn't draw her into that hustle and bustle. But she liked the summer excitement of Primorye. There were also many people there, but they all seemed down to earth, like locals, as if everyone knew you by name and would come up and say hello any minute. Life always reigned there. There were always people, some replacing others. It was to this very coast that Marina was going. She arrived early in the morning. She immediately went to look for housing. There was an advertisement on an old dilapidated house. Room for rent? This house was built back in Soviet times for specialists of some factory. Marina had even participated in the construction from the factory. Nobody ever got the apartments, but the former workers remained after the collapse of the Union, each with their own small room. The house was corridor type. On both sides of the entrance were doors to the apartments. Some were one-room apartments. Those people were lucky. They got a ready apartment in ownership. Marina had a standard 2-room apartment, but each room had its own owner. The kitchen and bathroom were shared. There were also 3- and 4-room apartments. The system was the same there. Living in a 2-room apartment was quite convenient. The neighbor Max was a young guy. The room belonged to his mother. When she died, he stayed. He paid attention, helped her carry out the old sofa and assemble a new one, did repairs in the apartment, fixing the electricity or changing the faucet. He had to do this very often. The house was built in a hurry. The materials were not the best. Pipes burst repeatedly. One New Year, Marina and Max celebrated in jackets and by candlelight. Not because it was romantic, but because the power was also out in the entire district due to an accident. Marina moved in and slowly started settling into the small room. The landlady, a very kind woman, left the girl all the appliances, old towels, and even a set of new bed linen, and Marina started living alone, for the first time in her life, without anyone's help. She wanted to get a job, but there, upon learning of her condition, they politely refused. She took a temporary part-time job as a saleswoman. The work was hard, the pay was low, but it was paid on time, and it was enough for her. The only thing that scared her was the thought of the upcoming birth. No one would give her maternity leave, and you still had to wait for the allowance up to the minimum living wage, that allowance. This thought became clearer and clearer in Marina's head every day. That day she came home from work especially exhausted. She had carried some boxes from the warehouse, run up and down the stairs. Without changing, she collapsed onto the bed. She wanted to close her eyes right away and pass out, but she felt a strong heaviness in her lower abdomen. Everything ached and throbbed. She was very thirsty. Marina tried to get up, to go to the kitchen for water, but the movement suddenly caused sharp pain throughout her body. She got to her feet, opened the door, and took a step into the common corridor. Max caught her by the arms halfway to the kitchen. She hadn't even noticed that she was screaming in pain. He was the one who called the ambulance. He was the one who met her from the hospital and was by her side every day, saying that what had happened wasn't a verdict, that she needed to live on. And she lived. Not together with him, but just nearby. Max stayed overnight more and more often, and then they combined their apartments all together. So much happened during that time, good and bad. Marina bounced between part-time jobs, first as a saleswoman, then as an administrator in a cafe. Marina received the news of her pregnancy as a miracle. Although no one spoke of traumatic consequences, the thought that she might not be able to have another child sometimes crossed Marina's mind. Stevie was born a strong boy. As soon as he learned to talk, he reasoned like an adult. He calmly accepted the news that Mom and Dad wouldn't live together. He only asked Max, "Will you still love me? Maybe even more? And I'll pick you up for holidays." She was in this apartment again. Everything here was the same, just as she remembered it. But something had changed. Outwardly, it wasn't noticeable, but stepping across the threshold, she immediately felt it. It was empty here. Too much free space. Everything felt uninhabited. There was no human warmth in this apartment. A dark corridor, the kitchen was just as dark a room. The windows here always blocked the light. The light that Gino turned on here every evening was a pathetic imitation, a parody of the sun. And then she came. She stepped onto this floor again, and it was as if circles of warmth and sunlight radiated from her. The hanger where her raincoat hung lit up, the shelf where her boots stood. She walked down the corridor, and a train followed her, as if a sunbeam followed her everywhere. Gino let her go ahead and was himself caught under these almost magical charms. He was captivated by how she managed to fill these stuffy corners with air, how she managed to touch things and immediately fill them with life. She took a cup of tea, and its aroma spread throughout the kitchen as if she dispersed it with her breath. Her cup clinked against the saucer, but she continued to hold the thin handle. Gino touched her fingers with the back of his hand, took her hand and brought it to his lips. She smelled of something sweet, cream, probably. And she also smelled of cold, steam from the tea, the fading autumn. She was so beautiful now, the abandoned apartment had become so bright. Marina went into the room, walked to the table, and leaned her palms on it. She looked out the window, thinking about something. It was getting dark outside, the wind was cold, rain was falling, and behind her was Gino. He quietly came close and put his arms around her shoulders. So quietly, as if afraid to scare her away, or trying to remember every second of this. Before she turned around, he managed to say, "I'm to blame." In the morning, she left. She had her own home, a child to take care of, a job, and now a cat too. Now no one held anyone back. No one begged them to stay for long. They didn't linger in bed, postponing the last morning minutes. He didn't ask when they could meet again, if a meeting was even possible. He walked her to the door, put her in a taxi. He himself needed to gather his thoughts, finish the work left for the weekend. How tired he was of this aching feeling of uniformity in the apartment. After she left, everything grew dark again. On the things, some scent of her hands still lingered, and it seemed particles of the light that streamed after her yesterday. But the rest was just as gloomy and empty. A cold, empty apartment. Eugene opened a real estate website called Some Agency. "I want to sell my apartment. 3-bedroom, central location, 72 square meters. The building is old, but not for demolition. No repairs. I want to sell it as soon as possible." The girl on the other end of the line said something about a discount, about how the apartment could be sold faster by paying for promotion. They agreed on noon. The agent arrived with a couple of other people. They wrote something in a notebook, then on their phones. They signed the documents, took an advance payment for the work, and left. And Eugene himself couldn't believe he was doing this. But he knew, if he hesitated now, he might miss everything again. After 2 weeks, a family was found. They came to see the apartment, asked why there was such a discount, why it was being sold urgently, and satisfied that the building wasn't falling apart, they agreed to the purchase. He called Marina the next day and arranged to meet in the same cafe in the evening. "Please come. There might not be another time." Only then did he think that he might have seriously scared her with those words. Who knew what she would think? But on the other hand, he had said everything correctly. There might not be another chance. He worried for nothing. Marina didn't look alarmed by his state, but she did come to the meeting. I'm selling the apartment. I want to move far away from here, maybe south. You decided that so quickly? Why suddenly? So I don't change my mind. I want to break out of this vicious cycle. I want you to come with me. Don't refuse right away. I know it might sound strange. It's just that we met now. Everything happened so suddenly. What is this if not a second chance for both of us? We can still start over. We can still build what didn't happen. Gino, do you understand that this isn't a one-day decision? Work? School? I have an apartment here too. I already uprooted myself once and everything brought me back. I'm asking you to think about it. I'm asking you very seriously. I can guarantee you won't regret this decision. I can swear on my knees. Such loud words. Swear. Guarantee. But we're not 15 anymore, remember? And I didn't promise you anything at 15, but I can now. When I saw you again, it was like dust fell out of my eyes. Do you understand? I saw the world. This apartment, the old job. I thought, okay, I'll start a new life. But I realized I can't do it without you. It will stay the same no matter where I go. I'm glad we met and I don't regret anything. But I can't make such a decision right away either. They left the cafe in silence, together. They agreed that Marina would think about it and call when she decided. She's gently brushing me off, he thought. She'll call in a week, apologize, blame it on work or school, on stress for the child. And you, Eugene Alexandrovich, will continue to exist with a sense of duty done, sometimes remembering how you screwed up again. But his reasoning was not justified. They were already walking past his house. She stopped at the turn into the courtyard. I want to leave with you. I definitely want to. We have to try. Otherwise, we won't forgive ourselves. Summer was very early this year. Spring passed quickly. There were no prolonged rains. There was almost no winter either. Marina didn't even wear her winter jacket for all 3 months, managing with a windbreaker. They had to turn on the air conditioning. The house heated up so much that it was unbearable to be inside even at night. Their house was large but cozy. On the first floor were the living room, kitchen, dining room, and children's room. The living room was furnished with soft armchairs and a small sofa. It was always cozy and bright here. A modern kitchen for quick cooking, not wasting time. The dining room walls were paneled with wood, and the windows opened directly onto the terrace. The terrace was a good place to relax in spring or early autumn. In summer it was a bit hot here, but comfortable at night. This was their family's favorite spot. Eugene worked here in the evenings. Marina would come to him if he stayed up late. She would sit beside him on the small sofa. From the terrace you could see the clearing near the house, the nearest forest. Their house was on a hill. The light from the streetlights below allowed them to see a patch of the sea. They didn't go to the sea here. It was for tourists. From April to November it was overcrowded. The bay was always dirty. They drove about 50 kilometers from the house to a guest house. They rested there not only from work and household chores, but also from vacationers and neighbors. Eugene took 2 days off. They decided to spend the weekend on vacation. Eugene knew a beach where there were rarely any vacationers. But the sea was shallow, without sudden drops. The water was clean. Stevie was always happy about joint trips for relaxation. He stayed in the sea longer than he should have. And upon returning from the beach, Eugene would buy him ice cream or cotton candy. They walked in the coastal parks, along the promenades. In the evenings, they went to the local markets. Now he and Marina were lying on towels. Stevie was splashing by the shore. I wish to spend the rest of my life with you, Marina suddenly said. Every year and on every birthday. And why did you decide to tell me now? Eugene smiled slightly. It came true. Now I can.